Hey guys, tonight we journey into a world you think you know, but trust me, you don't. We're not visiting kings or queens, not the noble halls with roaring fires and feasts of roasted swan. No, tonight we're curling up with the real survivors of the medieval world, the ones who didn't have titles but had something much stronger, the stubbornness to endure. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft hum in the background. Let the weight of your day ease off your shoulders. And let's slip together into tonight's story. Tonight's journey. How medieval peasants survived in harsh winters. We often think of winter today as a cozy time with sweaters, hot drinks, and electric blankets. A time for snowflake filters and Christmas movies, for heaters that hum and windows that shut tight. But in the medieval world, winter wasn't romantic. It wasn't charming. It was brutal, long, hungry, and cold in ways you can't imagine unless you've tried to sleep in a house made of mud, straw, and frozen regret. This story isn't just about survival. It's about ordinary people, most of them nameless in the eyes of history, who outlasted blizzards, starvation, illness, and frostbite, with nothing more than grit, shared body heat, and a fire that refused to die. They weren't heroes in armor. They didn't write books or lead armies. They milked goats, patched roofs with dung, and prayed that spring would come before they ran out of wood or children. Tonight, you'll wake up in one of their shoes, or more likely, barefoot. We're going to walk through their winter routines, from waking up on a half-frozen pile of straw to trying to keep the hearth burning through a snowstorm that doesn't care about your feelings. You'll feel the wind rattle your door. You'll taste the thin, sour broth of breakfast, and by the end, you might be surprised at how much your warm bed suddenly feels like a 5-star miracle. Because here's the thing, surviving a medieval winter wasn't just a season, it was a full-time job. It meant scavenging, scraping, sharing, and often sacrificing. Every day was a gamble, every night was a test. And the ones who made it to spring didn't do so by luck. They made it because they never stopped working, never stopped trying, and never, ever let the fire go out. So if you're ready, grab an extra blanket, put away your phone, close your eyes if you'd like. You won't need it where we're going. We're headed back in time, not to the throne rooms of Europe, but to the freezing dirt floors of the forgotten. Let's go see how they lived, how they suffered, and how, somehow, they survived. Your eyes open, and it's dark. Not the kind of soft, cozy darkness that comes with blackout curtains or a gentle rain on the roof. No, this is real darkness. Heavy, silent, total. The kind that feels like a blanket of its own, except far less comforting. There's no sunlight peeking through your window, because you don't have a window. Just a tiny, uneven hole in the wall covered with stiffened animal skin, letting in about as much light as a closed eyelid. You blink a few times, trying to adjust, but the room remains a blur of shadows and frost. The first thing you notice isn't the sight, it's the cold. It hits you like a wave, not sharp, but thick. The kind of cold that sinks deep into your chest and makes your breath feel like it's freezing from the inside out. Your nose is numb. Your fingers ache, even though they're tucked into your armpits for warmth. Your toes. You're not sure if you can feel them yet. Your bed, if you can call it that, is a thin sack of straw laid across the packed dirt floor. The straw is old, itchy, and suspiciously damp near the edges. You shift slightly, and the crunching sound is loud in the stillness. You can feel each stalk poke through the threadbare linen covering, scratching your skin like the world's worst welcome mat. The blanket wrapped around you is rough wool, heavy with age and soaked with the smell of livestock, wood smoke, and something that might be mildew. It doesn't cover you completely, but that's normal. You've learnt to curl into a shape that leaves no limb exposed, because exposed means frostbite, and frostbite means you won't be walking come spring. Above your head, a few rafters creak under the weight of snow. You hear the soft shifting of thatch and the occasional plop of melting ice sneaking through the roof. One of the drops lands on your forehead. You wipe it away with your sleeve, which feels as cold and stiff as if it were made of bark. The room, if you can call it a room, isn't much larger than a modern bathroom. The walls are made of wattle and daub, sticks, mud, and dried animal dung, packed together in a desperate attempt to keep the wind out. It doesn't work. The wind finds you. It always does. It slithers through the cracks and nips at your skin, testing the layers between you and hypothermia. You're not alone in here. Your family, mother, father, siblings, they're all sleeping in the same space. Some are still bundled under shared blankets. You can hear the soft rasp of your father's breath, the occasional snore from your brother, the whimper of a baby dreaming of warmth that doesn't exist. Everyone huddles together, back to back, because warmth is a communal effort. Personal space is a modern invention. And then there's the goat. She's tied to a wooden post near the hearth. She's part of the family too. Her body heat helps keep the room from turning into an icebox. She blinks at you in the dark, and you blink back. Neither of you are happy to be awake. You sit up slowly, careful not to wake the baby. The cold grabs you fully now. Your breath turns to mist. Your joints protest. Your skin erupts in goose flesh. Your wool tunic from yesterday is bunched at the foot of the bed. It's stiff, half frozen, and smells like a combination of sweat, smoke, and wet sheep. You pull it on anyway. Standing up is its own adventure. The floor is just dirt cold, uneven, and hard. Your bare feet hit it like stones. You wince. A rat skitters away from your movement, probably having nested in the rushes overnight. There's a smear of something across the floor that wasn't there when you fell asleep. You don't want to know. The fire has long since gone out. The hearth, a simple stone pit in the center of the room, is just a pile of grey ash and blackened wood. Someone will need to bank it back to life soon. Without that fire, this house is nothing more than a frozen box with a roof that leaks and walls that whisper through every crack. Outside, the wind howls against the thatch. You hear it rattle the door, a warped plank of wood, with a leather strap as snowdrifts pile against it. You know what it looks like out there, a white blur stretching in every direction. Trees like skeletons, fences buried, no footprints yet, but soon there will be. There's no clock in your home, of course, no phone, no alarm, no morning playlist. You judge the time by the cold, by the sounds of distant roosters, by the ache in your stomach. It's early, too early, but winter doesn't wait. You shuffle to the corner where the chamber pot sits. It's half frozen, and someone didn't quite aim last night. You sigh. You're going to have to empty it later, slipping through the snow in your cracked leather shoes, hoping not to fall into the ditch. Again, you try to stretch your back. It groans. Your neck cracks. You're maybe 27 years old, but here, in this time, that's almost middle-aged. Your knees feel like they belong to someone twice that. You slept curled into a knot, with a goat breathing on your arm and a straw mattress full of fleas. You're not waking up refreshed. You're waking up lucky to have woken up at all. You take a breath. The air is sharp and dry, tinged with smoke, old sweat, and a hint of manure. It's not pleasant, but it's familiar. This is winter, and you've survived one more night. Outside, the sun is rising, not that you can see it. The sky is grey, the light is dim, and the cold hasn't gone anywhere. But it's time to start the day. There's work to be done, fires to light, animals to feed, ice to break, and a long frozen morning ahead of you. And you're still here, still breathing, still alive. Welcome to winter in the Middle Ages. You're not awake because you feel refreshed. You're awake because your body has issued a simple command: move or freeze. The fire has gone out overnight. Not entirely, a few glowing embers remain beneath the ash if you're lucky. But no one banked it properly last night. Or maybe the wind was too strong, and now the hearth looks more like a grave than a flame. You know what comes next. You pull on your boots stiff, cracked leather wrapped in cloth to keep the snow from biting through the holes. They're damp inside, always damp. They never truly dry. You shove your feet into them anyway, ignoring the sharp jab of a pebble stuck in the sole, and you begin your quiet shuffle toward the ashes. You kneel, using a metal poker to stir through the remains of yesterday's heat. A few glowing coals wink at you from the bottom. Hope. You grab a handful of straw, some dry twigs, a piece of cloth that once resembled a rag. You blow softly, careful, rhythmic, desperate. Your breath turns to mist as the twigs begin to crackle. Smoke curls upward. If you're lucky, it catches. If you're not, well, you'd better start looking for more dry kindling in the snow with frozen fingers and no gloves. But today, it catches. The fire begins to live again, a flicker at first, then a curl of orange warmth that rises slowly, bravely into the center of your one-room home. The goat grunts in approval. Someone rolls over in bed. Your mother pulls the blanket tighter around the baby and mutters something halfway between a prayer and a curse. Now the fire's going. It's time for your next impossible task: breakfast. There's no fridge to open, no toaster, no warm bowl of oatmeal waiting politely for you in a ceramic dish. What you have is a wooden bowl, rough, uneven, and cracked in one corner, and inside, something that barely counts as food. You ladle out what's left of yesterday's pottage, a stew made from old beans, bruised vegetables, maybe a shriveled turnip if you're lucky. It's thick, gloopy, and looks like it's been sitting around since the feast of street someone or other. The smell is earthy, like damp roots and burnt onions, with a faint hint of sour goat milk. You ladle it into your bowl and hold it close to the fire, letting the heat do what it can. You'd kill for a piece of bread, but that's long gone. Bread doesn't last long in winter. Neither does hope. Still, you eat, slowly, carefully. The pottage is tepid at best and tastes like a soup someone once described to a rock. But it's warm, and that's all that matters. Food is fuel. It's not meant to be satisfying. It's meant to keep your hands from shaking when you carry the bucket to the well. You sip from a clay cup filled with something that might be ale or just weak beer. You drink it, not because you enjoy it, but because water from the stream could kill you. If it's not frozen, it's likely filled with runoff from the latrine. A few sips of bad beer might give you a headache. A few sips of water might give you dysentery. The rest of the family is waking now. You hear grumbles, coughs, the sharp snap of someone's knee refusing to bend. Someone mutters a prayer. Someone else curses. The goat sneezes. And now, hygiene, which is a generous word in this century. There is no bathroom. There is no sink. There is no soap, unless you count the block of homemade lye and ashes sitting in a dish by the door, which will sting your hands and strip the color from anything it touches. Your morning wash is a bowl of cold water, drawn last night and half frozen on the surface. You dip your fingers in. It's like plunging your hand into an ice sculpture. You splash your face. It stings. Your teeth chatter. You don't brush your teeth. Toothbrushes haven't been invented yet, and toothpaste is just a myth told by the rich and the imaginative. If you're feeling fancy, you might rub your teeth with a twig or chew a piece of cloth dipped in salt and vinegar. Mostly, you just rinse your mouth with cold water and pray your teeth hold on for one more winter. Your hands are filthy. They always are. The dirt is ingrained in your nails, your palms are cracked, your knuckles raw. You splash them anyway, wiping them on the same cloth you've used for everything else: dishes, drying, spills, wiping the baby, maybe even your face yesterday. Hygiene in this era is less about being clean and more about not being the dirtiest person in the room. You rewrap your head with a wool cap not for fashion, but because you can feel the wind slicing through the cracks in the wall. A medieval nightcap is your only defense against freezing your scalp. You tug your cloak around your shoulders, and the smell hits you. Smoke, sweat, damp wool, and something you've long since stopped questioning. The air in the hut is thick with it, a mix of animal, ash, and the sour tang of people who haven't had a proper bath since summer. The baby starts to cry. Someone knocks over the chamber pot. A rooster crows in the distance, muffled by snow and wind. And outside, the day is beginning cruel, grey, and absolutely uninterested in how you feel about it. You've washed, in theory. You've eaten, sort of. You're dressed in the same clothes you wore yesterday and the day before that, and likely all of last week. You'll wash them in spring, maybe, or maybe they'll just fall apart. And now, it's time to go outside. There's work to be done, firewood to gather, ice to break, animals to feed, roofs to patch. Life doesn't pause because you're cold. Life doesn't care that your feet hurt. Life in the medieval winter is a slow grind toward the possibility of spring. And if you survive, that's the reward. Not comfort, not peace, just another day. You're dressed now. Or more accurately, you've layered enough cloth to resemble something alive. Not because it's fashionable or even comfortable, but because it's the only thing between your skin and the slow, creeping bite of winter. Let's take a moment to appreciate the artistry of medieval peasant fashion. First, your undertunic, a long shirt made of coarse linen or rough-spun wool. It itches constantly, like your entire body has been personally insulted by the garment, and it never gets washed. Not really. If you're lucky, it's beaten against a river rock once every few months. If you're really lucky, it doesn't still smell like the last stomach flu you had in it. Over that, a second tunic. Thicker, heavier. Wool again. Always wool. Because wool keeps warmth even when it's wet. And it is always wet. From snow, sleet, fog, or just the general dampness of living in a house with a dirt floor and a goat named Edith. Tied around your waist is a rope or a belt made of leather, if you're lucky, hemp if you're not. It keeps your tunic from flapping around while you work. It also doubles as a tool holder, pouch anchor, and when necessary, emergency chicken leash. Your legs are covered with hose, not the silky kind, but thick woven tubes that fit like ill-tempered sleeves. They sag, they pinch, they let in cold air exactly where you don't want cold air. They are held up by strings, or sometimes just a prayer. And underneath, nothing. Medieval underwear was rare, especially for peasants. Your most private bits are at the mercy of frost and friction. Good luck with that. Shoes? Technically, you own a pair, sort of. They're leather, cracked, and curling at the toes, with holes where the stitching has long since given up. You've stuffed bits of straw or cloth inside to keep the cold out. It doesn't help much. Every step is a splash. Every walk outside is a gamble. And snow doesn't just melt, it clings. It crawls up your soles, into your hose, under your tunic, where it quietly freezes your will to live. On your head, a woolen coif, or cap, the medieval version of a beanie, except scratchier and less flattering. It's tied under the chin, mostly to keep it from flying off when the wind remembers how much it hates you. On top of that, maybe a hood, and if you're really fortunate, a cloak, thick, rough, fastened at the shoulder with a brooch that used to belong to your grandmother before she froze to death, walking home from market in 1273. You're not wearing gloves. Gloves are for rich people. You've wrapped strips of cloth around your hands, mummy style, and you try not to touch metal, because everything metal is the temperature of betrayal. And now, with your full ensemble of discomfort, you step back inside, because outside is worse, and take in your shelter, your castle, your mud and stick fortress against the storm. And by fortress, of course, we mean one room, dirt floor, questionable roof, no privacy. The walls are made of wattle and daub-woven wooden slats, smeared with a charming combination of mud, straw, and animal dung. Yes, dung. Because in the medieval world, if it stuck to a wall and didn't cost money, it was considered insulation. The smell fades after a few months. Mostly, there's no chimney. Smoke from the fire seeps out through holes in the roof, or more commonly stays trapped inside, turning your home into a slow-cooked lung hazard. Your eyes water constantly. The ceiling is stained black from soot. And if the wind shifts the wrong way, you might spend the next few hours coughing like you're being exercised. The thatched roof is thick, made from bundled reeds or straw. In summer, it's alive with bugs. In winter, it leaks. Water finds its way down the walls, along beams, and sometimes right onto your sleeping mat. Mold is a roommate now. You've named him Bernard. There's no door in the modern sense, just a wooden plank you lift and wedge shut with a stone. The wind still gets in. So do rats. Mice live in the walls. Birds nest in the rafters. A ferret came through last winter and slept by the fire like it owned the place. Windows. You wish. If there's an opening at all, it's a hole in the wall covered with stretched animal skin or thin wood shutters. No glass. Never glass. Glass is for churches, cathedrals, and the kind of people who wear actual underwear. The floor? Dirt. Just dirt. Maybe covered in rushes, old, flattened, mouldy plants scattered across the ground to soak up spills and filth. Over time, layers build up. Crushed food, spilled drink, droppings. Eventually, the floor becomes its own living ecosystem. You don't clean it. You refresh it by throwing more rushes on top. It's like composting your living space in real time. There is no bathroom. You know this. The chamber pot sits in the corner, steaming faintly. You'll empty it later. Maybe, if the wind dies down, if your boots hold together long enough. Shelving doesn't exist. Belongings, what few you have, hang from hooks or sit in baskets. A wooden comb, a chipped bowl, a knife with a handle that's more rust than wood. These are treasures. You guard them like gold. The walls are decorated, if you're feeling generous. Herbs hang from beams to dry. A carved wooden cross maybe. A family charm to keep the spirits out. Or in. Depends on the season. Privacy? Forget it. You live, sleep, and breathe beside everyone else. You hear everything. You smell everything. Someone has gas? That's now everyone's gas. Someone's baby wakes up? Now you're up. Your parents argue? Guess who's part of that conversation now? Your entire life fits inside this one cold, smoky, mud-smeared box. There are no secrets, no locks, no closed doors, and yet it's home. The cold stays out mostly, the fire crackles sometimes, and the walls, as awful as they are, stand strong until next storm season. In the depth of winter, you cling to this shelter. You patch the roof with frozen straw and prayers. You stuff moss in the cracks. You share body heat and stale jokes and the memory of better harvests. This place isn't perfect. It isn't even good, but it's warm enough. And in a medieval winter, that's what survival looks like. You take one last breath of warm, smoky air and push open the door. It groans on its leather hinges. Cold air punches you in the lungs. You step outside. Your boots crunch over frozen mud and patches of snow hardened into something that could shatter teeth. Your cloak flaps behind you like a worn-out flag of surrender. The sky is grey. The sun, if it's even up, hides behind a blanket of clouds, thick as wool. It will not be helping today. The wind bites and keeps biting, and you keep walking because work doesn't wait. It doesn't care that you didn't sleep. It doesn't care that your hands are cracked, your shoes are leaking, and your last meal tasted like someone boiled sadness in a bucket. You are a peasant, and peasants work, or they don't eat. First Job. Fetching water. Before anything else, you need water. You walk to the well 1/2 mile down a slippery path, past frozen fences and leafless trees that rattle like bones in the wind. The rope is stiff with ice. The bucket cracks like glass as you lower it. You pray it doesn't freeze solid before you get it back home. The water smells like minerals and mud and something faintly dead, but it's wet. That's enough. You tie it to a yoke across your shoulders and trudge back. Your back screams. Your hands go numb. You slip once, fall hard. Mud and ice up your sleeve. You don't even curse. You don't have the energy. Second Job. Feeding the animals. The animals are waiting. They don't speak, but they make their displeasure known. The cow moans her breath, forming steam in the icy air. She needs hay. The goat bleats like she's been personally insulted by your lateness. The chickens are oddly silent, huddled together in a wooden coop that hasn't been cleaned since last year's harvest. One of them is dead, frozen stiff. You remove it, quietly. The others don't even blink. There's no fresh feed. You grab the mouldy hay that's been sitting in the loft since autumn and break it apart with numb fingers. You scatter it. The cow stares at it, unimpressed, but eats it anyway. You refill the troughs with water. It's already turning to ice. Third Job. The fields. You head to the field not to plant, of course. Nothing grows now. But the fences have collapsed. The snowdrifts are burying the stone markers that separate your land from your neighbors, and the thatch from the old roof has blown into the trees and needs collecting before it disappears completely. You walk the field. It stretches out white and grey, like a shroud. There is no color in this world. No sound, except the crunch of your boots and the occasional groan of the trees under snow weight. You spend an hour clearing snow from the fence posts. Your gloves are just scraps of cloth. Your fingers are blue. You try not to think about it. You collect frozen thatch, slipping it into a basket so brittle it might as well be made of bread. You bend down. You straighten up. Your back protests every movement like an old man shouting at clouds. You're with our Hugain. Fourth Job. Wood. Firewood is survival. You don't cut trees in winter, not if you can help it. The wood is frozen, the bark hard as iron, but you still need fuel. You scavenge instead broken branches, fallen logs, old stumps, dry enough to burn. Your axe is dull, the handle is splintered. You swing anyway. Each chop sends a jolt through your arms, up your spine. The sound echoes. Cold wood explodes into shards. You carry what you can back to the cottage. Your arms ache. You drop one bundle and don't pick it up. It's too far, too heavy. You'll come back for it. Maybe you won't. Fifth Job. Repairs. The roof leaks. The chicken coop door fell off again. The fence is one storm away from flying into your neighbor's potato patch, assuming either of you can grow potatoes again after last year's frost killed half the crop. You fix what you can. You patch holes with whatever you can find: rags, mud, hay soaked in goat urine. You nail boards back in place with bent nails and colder fingers. Your tools are crude, rusty, and inherited from a grandfather who probably used them to build the same fence you're now trying to keep alive with twine and pleading. You climb the roof. Carefully, one foot slips. Your heart jumps. You cling to the thatch and breathe through the panic. Then you keep going, because this is survival. Overseers, lords, and obligations. If you're a tenant, you're lucky. You only owe your lord a portion of your crops come spring. If you're a serf, you're unlucky. You don't own the land. You don't own anything. Not the field, not the house, not even the firewood you just hauled home. It all belongs to the manor. You work it, you fix it, you die on it, and someone else reaps the reward. Sometimes a steward comes to check in. Sometimes he brings soldiers. Sometimes they take what little grain you have left. Sometimes they just shout. And sometimes they don't come at all, which is worse, because that means war is coming, or taxes are rising, or the plague is back. You never know which is worse, only that it's coming. Lunch? A pause, not a meal. By now it's midday though. You can't see the Sunday. You head back inside. Your hands are shaking. Your lips are cracked. You sit near the fire, and for a few seconds, you forget to shiver. Lunch is more pottage. Thinner now, less turnip. Just enough to keep you vertical. You drink it slowly. The baby is crying. Your father has a hacking cough that hasn't gone away since last winter. Your mother looks at the wall as if it might change. You finish eating. You rest for 5 minutes. Then you stand up. Because winter doesn't care. The snow keeps falling. The fire keeps dying. And you are still alive, which means you still owe this day your sweat. It's afternoon now, or something like it. Time doesn't move here. It creeps. The sun, hidden behind thick clouds, offers no help. The cold is still biting, but now it's the quiet that's harder to ignore. You take a moment to catch your breath, standing near the crooked fence, your hands raw, your lips cracked, and your legs starting to cramp. And that's when you notice it. A shadow, a chill, something off. You don't name it. You wouldn't dare. Because in your world, nothing happens just because. That terrible cough your father has could be the start of another winter fever. Could also be punishment for breaking Lent last year, or for swearing near the shrine of Street Agatha. The dead chicken in the coop this morning? Maybe it was coal. Maybe it saw something. In the medieval world, faith isn't theoretical. It's not a philosophical debate. It's not something you post about to look virtuous. It's woven into your bone. You believe not because you are convinced, but because not believing feels like lighting a candle with your own hair and daring the devil to blow it out. The church is everywhere. At the center of your village, there's a small church stone, if you're lucky, wood if you're not. The priest lives nearby, though you rarely see him outside of Mass or feast days. He's educated at least enough to read Latin and tell you what the scriptures say. You trust him, mostly, but you also fear him because he speaks on behalf of God, because he keeps records of sins, and because if something goes wrong, a sickness, a storm, a stillbirth, he might be the one to tell you why, or who to blame. The church tells you what days you're allowed to work, what food you're allowed to eat, what prayers to say when your roof caves in or your child won't wake up. And when someone dies, it's the church that buries them. That decides if they get hallowed ground or the edge of the woods, if they get prayers or silence. In winter, the line between faith and fear is thin, and everyone's already looking for someone to blame. Saints, symbols, and the everyday. You don't just pray on Sundays. You pray all the time. When you wake up, when you pass the church, when you fall, drop something, see a crow sitting alone on a fence post, you cross yourself, just in case. There are saints for everything. Street Brigid protects your sheep. Street Blaze protects you from throat infections. Street Nicholas looks after children, thieves, and unmarried girls, though you're not sure how he has time for all three. Small wooden charms hang from the rafters in your home. worn crosses, tiny painted tokens, bits of cloth from a pilgrimage your uncle made 15 years ago to a shrine in the next county and never came back from. You don't know if they work, but you don't take them down. Superstition, the cold logic of the desperate. It's not just official religion that shapes your days. It's the strange, whispered truths everyone seems to know, even if no one taught them. You never walk past the churchyard after sunset. You never open the door before saying the name of the person on the other side. You never burn holly, never lend needles, never sweep your floor toward the door. Not because it's written in scripture, but because someone's grandmother once did. And then their barn burned down and their cow gave birth to a calf with 2 heads and no ears. Superstition isn't childish here. It's another form of survival. You follow the rules, because what if they're true? In winter, when days are short and nights last forever, the world feels thinner, like something is always watching. A ghost, a spirit, a cold thing that doesn't care about Latin or logic. So you do what your mother did, what her mother did. You tie a string of garlic above the door. You draw a cross in the ash when you bank the fire. You whisper your name backward before bed, just in case something is listening. The devil and his many masks. You've never seen the devil, but you've heard of him. He walks through forests as a black dog, or a pale man with no shadow, or a one-eyed crow that sits on the steeple and laughs when the bell tolls. He's not always horns and hooves. Sometimes he's just a thought, a whisper that tempts you to steal, or strike, or speak when you should stay silent. Sometimes he's the voice in your head when you're hungry and tired, and start thinking about what it would be like to eat the salted pork meant for Easter. If your child falls ill, if your bread doesn't rise, if your cow stops giving milk, someone might say the devil passed nearby. Or worse, that someone in the village made a deal with him. You glance sideways at your neighbors sometimes. They do the same to you. Winter death and the fear of spirits. When someone dies in winter, and someone always does, the whole village feels it. Not just because of grief, but because of what might come next. The dead are buried quickly. There's no embalming. The ground is hard, and the grave is shallow. If the priest is there, he blesses the body. If not, you do your best. But no one sleeps that night. Not well. The wind scratches the windows. You hear footsteps on the frozen road. Maybe just a fox. Maybe something else. Someone leaves a piece of bread on the threshold for the spirit. To keep it moving, someone else hangs a mirror upside down, just for 3 days. Just until the soul settles. You tell yourself you're not afraid, but you don't go outside, and you don't say the dead person's name out loud. Not yet. Let them rest. Let them go. Let the winter take what it came for, and nothing more. Hope, humility, and the holy silence. Despite all the fear, all the rules and rituals and strange whispered warnings, there is one thing you still hold on to: hope. Because spring will come, the snow will melt, the earth will warm, the fields will open, the lambs will bleat again, the sun will return, God willing. Until then, you kneel in the dark corner of your one-room home. You press your forehead to rough wood. You whisper the same prayer your grandmother whispered during the famine, and her grandmother before her. Lord, spare us, light the fire, wake the earth, keep the devil on the road and the cold in the trees. And then you get up, because it's time to work again. The light is fading, though it never really arrived. You've spent the day hauling, chopping, lifting, bending, obeying. And now your stomach aches in that deep, bone-hollow way, not from skipping a meal, but from the kind of hunger that just lives with you. A familiar tenant, always quiet, always present. It's time for supper, but let's not romanticize it. There is no roast, no feast, no hearty medieval banquet, like the ones painted in tapestries or imagined in movies. You don't eat to enjoy, you eat to survive. The meal. You sit on a low stool by the hearth. There's a fire, not a great one, but it's enough to cast orange light on the walls and make you forget, for a moment, that your fingers stopped working properly sometime after midday. Your mother stirs the pot, the same pot that's been cooking for 2 days. Inside is pottage. Again, always pottage. This batch contains some dried peas, an onion that gave up last week, and half a turnip that might be more frost than food. There's a bone in it, too, not for meat, but for flavour. A flavour that left weeks ago, but you're all pretending it's still there. Bread? If you have any, it's hard enough to use as a weapon. You soak it in the broth until it softens into a paste. The whole family eats from the same bowl. You use wooden spoons. There's no talking at first, only chewing. Quiet, rhythmic, unenthusiastic. Your father eats like a man trying to outpace regret. Your mother eats while watching the fire, as if hoping it might give her a vision. The baby gnaws on the crust and smears lentil paste across their forehead. You eat slowly, not to savor, just to stretch it out. This is dinner, and you're lucky to have it. The drink. There's no fresh milk, the cows aren't producing much. Not with the cold. Water is risky. Cold doesn't kill bacteria. If anything, it just makes them sneakier. So you drink what most peasants drink. Small ale. It's weak, watery, barely alcoholic, but it's safe. Boiled during brewing, fermented just enough to scare off disease. The taste is sour and flat, but it won't make you sick, probably. Sometimes you have cider sharp, biting, and made from apples that weren't good enough to store. Wine? Ha! That's for the nobility. You've never even tasted real wine. Your idea of luxury is a hot drink that doesn't smell like goat. But once in a while, a holy day, a rare gift, someone brings mead. Thick, golden, sweet with honey. It coats your throat like sunlight. Tonight, no mead, just cold ale in a cracked cup. You sip it slowly, letting it chase down the pottage and the cold creeping into your chest. After dinner, what passes for fun? It's dark now, completely. Outside, the snow falls in sheets. The wind is louder than the fire. The world feels wrapped in iron. So you huddle near the hearth. Not because it's warm, it's not. Not really. But because the darkness outside is worse. Now comes the strangest part of the day. Leisure. You don't have free time. You don't go clubbing. There is no medieval Netflix. But even peasants need something to hold on to, a distraction, a breath, a story, a laugh. Your father tells a tale. His voice is rough, worn from smoke and age, but steady. He tells the story of the old knight who married a swan, or the tale of the woman who tricked death into cleaning her hearth, or the one about the saint who fed a village with a single onion and a very persuasive look. You've heard these stories before. Everyone has. That's the point. They're not new, they're true, in the way that stories must be true, even when they aren't. Sometimes he sings, not well. His voice breaks like old wood, but you join in, a low, tuneless melody about winter giving way to spring, or lovers turned into stars, or cows that refuse to die even when the tax collector comes calling. Someone might play an instrument, a flute carved from bone, a drum made from a stretched goat hide, a fiddle with 2 strings and 3 notes. You don't need music to be good, you just need it to exist. And then there are games. Word games, mostly. Riddles. Guessing games. Who can lie the biggest lie without laughing? You point at each other and accuse your brother of being half ox. He retorts that you were born from a turnip and a sneeze. The baby claps like it's a comedy performance. Laughter comes easy in winter. Not because life is funny, but because if you don't laugh, you might scream, or cry, or walk into the woods and never come back. The festival memory. It's been months since the last festival, but you remember it the Feast of Street Martin maybe, or Yuletide. There was music, real food, dancing in the snow. The priest gave a sermon about hope. The neighbors shared wine too strong for your age. Someone fell into a trough and made it the best night in weeks. That was before the frost set in, before the snow buried the path, before the cattle started dying. Still, that memory, it glows in your mind like embers. It keeps you going. Next feast day is weeks away, if you make it that far. You'll mark it with the good candles. You'll dig out the one bit of fatback hidden in a pot under the floorboards. You'll sing the same songs, off-key and unashamed. Even in the hardest winters, celebration survives. Even if it's small, even if it's just bread and story, together in the cold. You look around the room. Your mother has fallen asleep sitting up, her hand still holding the spoon. Your father is rubbing his shoulder, trying to ignore the way it won't stop aching. Your brother is sketching something in the soot on the hearthstones. The baby snores, mouth open, drooling into the wool. And you're here, not happy, not warm, but alive. And not alone. The wind still howls, the snow still falls. But inside this mud and smoke-soaked home, something resembling peace settles in, just for tonight. The cough starts at midnight, sharp, wet, persistent. It cuts through the room like a knife. Then another cough from the baby this time, a wheeze, a cry, then silence, too much silence. You sit up, not because you're a doctor. You've never seen one. You've only heard of them in stories, men with long coats and clean hands who treat kings and bishops and leave when the snow starts. No one like that is coming to your hut. Not ever. Here, illness doesn't mean recovery. It means maybe. Maybe it's just a chill. Maybe it's a fever. Maybe it's something that'll kill half the village before spring. You don't know. No one does. So you do what everyone else does, you hope. And you start preparing. The constant threat, it's always there. Illness isn't something that shows up once in a while like a rare storm. It's everywhere. The man down the road lost 2 children last week. Your aunt hasn't left her bed since Candlemas. Even the cow is sick. Its milk has turned thin and bitter, like the animal is trying to warn you before it drops. Winter makes it worse. The air is damp. Your home is cold. The food is sparse. The smoke from the fire coats your lungs while the frost numbs your toes. There is no airflow, no sanitation, no escape. You sleep inches from people who might be incubating your death. You feel it in the wheeze of your breath, the ache in your bones, the way your mother clutches her belly when no one's looking. Something is always wrong, and something worse might be waiting in the dark. The healers. There's no doctor here. But there are healers, a midwife, a herb woman, a neighbor who once traveled to the next village and saw a monk mix vinegar with nettles and called it medicine. You know these women. Everyone does. They've helped deliver babies, bind wounds, set broken limbs with sticks and rough cloth. They've saved lives and sometimes been blamed for losing them. Their tools are simple. Dried herbs hanging from the rafters, crushed in bowls, ointments thick with pig fat, beeswax, and strong smells, prayer beads wrapped around wrists, woven into bundles of sage, knowledge passed down, woman to woman, whispered under breath when the priest isn't listening. Tonight, if the baby's breathing gets worse, you'll call the midwife. She'll bring a satchel of sharp-smelling roots and mutter both Hail Marys and warnings. She might bleed the child with a sharp thorn, or place a hot stone on their stomach, or blow warm breath across the baby's brow while chanting something older than scripture. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The cures and the risks. Let's talk about what you have to work with. Honey and vinegar mixed into a poultice, pressed against the chest. It stings like betrayal but might draw out the sickness. Onion and garlic hung around the neck, sliced and stuffed into the toes of socks, supposed to pull the fever down. smells awful. Works? Unclear. Bloodletting? Still popular. You cut the skin and let it drain because sickness is often seen as bad humors building up inside. Fewer humors, fewer problems. Except for the minor issue of losing blood while already weak. Leeches. Rare in your village but feared. Slimy, wriggling, and supposedly effective. They suck out the evil, or so you've heard. More likely, they just leave you faint and slightly more anxious. Prayers to saints, to angels, to Christ, to the Virgin, even to local relics, like the tooth of street Apollonia kept in the church chest. You light a candle, you whisper the name, you cry into your sleeve. There's comfort in prayer, even if it doesn't heal. It's something to do with your hands while you wait, the fear of the plague. You've heard of it, the Great Plague. The one that swept through the towns like a black wind, choking people in the streets and stacking corpses like firewood. It hasn't come this year, not yet, but everyone's afraid it might return. You watch for signs: black sores, sudden fevers, bleeding from the mouth, a sharp death that takes in hours, not days. If it comes, the priest will burn incense. The bells will toll, the people will run, not that there's anywhere to go. In winter, you're surrounded by ice and silence. The road is buried, the woods are haunted. You're trapped, with each other, with whatever's already inside your walls. Death comes quietly or loud. Sometimes people die screaming, sometimes they go in their sleep, and sometimes they just vanish. One day, they're coughing, the next, they're buried. No ceremony, no final words, just a hole dug fast and shallow before the ground freezes harder. You don't embalm, you don't wait. If someone dies, you wrap them in cloth, old linen, usually, and carry them out by lantern light. The priest says what he can. If the road is clear, you take them to consecrated ground. If not, you find a patch of earth that feels quiet and not cursed. You mark it with a stone. You say their name. Then you go home, wash your hands in ashes, and avoid mirrors for a week, just in case their soul is still looking. Living with the fear, you never talk about death directly. You refer to it in riddles. He's gone walking with the old ones. She's gone into the long sleep. The cold took her. The cough won. It's not denial. It's respect. You don't laugh at death. You don't tempt it. You nod at it when it passes and offer it a piece of bread and a quiet prayer. But every winter, you wonder, will it be your brother, your mother, you? And if it is you, will it be quick? Will someone remember your name? Will they bury you properly or just toss you into the earth with the others? You don't dwell on it, not openly, but when the wind howls just right, and the fire burns low, and someone coughs too long in the corner of the room, you listen, you wait, and you pray. You sit by the fire, such as it is, your legs outstretched, numb from a day of hauling wood and fear. The baby coughs again. Your mother sighs, not dramatically, not loudly, just that long, thin exhale. That means she's been holding everything in since the last frost. In this world, women don't rest. They labor. Always. And not just in the fields. They labor at life. A woman's role is work. Your mother is the first up. She was the last to sleep. She is the reason there's food in the pot, cloth on your back, and a roof still holding under the weight of snow. She milks the goat. She bakes the bread, or what passes for it. She stitches clothing in light so dim she can barely see her own fingers. She teaches the younger ones how to stay warm, how to fold cloth just so, how to read the weather by the smell of the wind. She does not complain, because what would be the point? No one's listening. No one can. Every woman around her is doing the same, from your sister, age 9, already helping with firewood and fetching water, to the neighbor's wife, who buried her 5th child 2 winters ago and still sings while she churns butter. There's no luxury of dreaming. You survive. Or you don't. Childbirth. Between the fire and the grave. You've seen it, or you've heard it, the sounds coming from behind the curtain hung for modesty. From the low moaning to the sharp scream to the silence that follows. The kind of silence you feel. Giving birth in winter is one of the riskiest gambles a medieval woman can take. There are no doctors. The midwife is a neighbour skilled, yes, but trained only in hard-won experience, and whispered remedies passed from mother to daughter like heirloom. The floor is dirt. The cloths are old. The water is never warm enough. She lies on a bed of straw, gripping a wooden beam or a roughened hand. The labour may take hours, or days, or end in death. Not just the baby's, hers too. If the child is born alive, it's a miracle. If the mother survives, it's a second one. You might name the child quickly, just in case they don't last the night. You might have already picked out a saint for them. You might not tell anyone until morning, because the grief is too fresh to speak aloud. Children, born to work, raised by winter. There's no such thing as a childhood here. You are old enough to work the moment you can hold a stick or carry a bucket. You start by feeding chickens, watching babies, stirring porridge. Then you grow into gathering firewood, chasing stray goats, mending holes in clothing that should have been burned years ago. By 7, you're a farmhand. By 12, you're an adult. By 15, you're probably married. Play exists, of course it does. Children always find ways, but it's stolen time. A game of sticks in the snow, a pretend battle with imaginary knights, a race down the frozen stream while no one is looking. But laughter here is brief, and often followed by a scolding. There's no time, there's too much to do. And children, like crops, are not guaranteed. The winter takes them. Often, quietly, quickly. You've seen it happen. A cold turns to fever. A cough turns to stillness. One day they're chasing chickens barefoot, and the next they're wrapped in linen and placed in the ground, sometimes without a name, if they were too young to be christened. Parents don't cry loudly. Not anymore. They just sit quietly, holding a toy that now has no owner. Marriage, love, and necessity. Romance? That's for the song. In real life, marriage is contract, a deal struck between families. Sometimes a promise for land, sometimes a way to forgive a debt, sometimes just because the priest said it's time. If you're a woman, you marry who you're told. Your opinion is not required. Your husband may be twice your age. He may be kind. He may not. He may drink. He may leave. But he will expect food, children, silence. And yet, despite all that, sometimes you do find warmth in a touch, in a shared joke over burning stew, in the quiet solidarity of two people who are both tired of suffering and decide, just for one winter, to survive together. You've seen it. A husband rubbing his wife's feet by the fire. A mother pulling her child close under the blanket. A boy sneaking an apple into the apron of a girl who hasn't smiled all season. It's not romance like you know it. It's not poetry, but it's real, and it matters. Elders, the memory keepers. Your grandmother doesn't speak much. She sits by the hearth, eyes clouded, hands gnarled like the trees outside. But she knows things. She remembers winters colder than this one. She tells stories when the babies cry, stories of saints, monsters, miracles, and women who gave birth in fields and named their children after the stars. She is the keeper of names, the last to remember who owned the farm before it was burned, the only one who still knows the words to that old lullaby no one sings anymore. When she dies, and it could be this winter, those memories go with her. You listen closely now, even if you don't understand all the words, even if her voice cracks and drifts into silence, because someday you'll be the one who remembers. Family is survival. In this world, family is not just kin. It is your workforce, your defense, your firewood carriers, your pottage stirrers, your singers and storytellers, and the only reason you haven't walked into the forest and kept walking. You rely on each other utterly, completely. If your father breaks his leg, you're all hungrier. If your mother falls ill, the roof doesn't get patched. If your brother wanders off drunk and freezes in the snow, no one sleeps for days. So you watch out for one another. You share what little you have. You braid hair, mend socks, cradle sick babies who aren't yours. You pray together. You cry quietly, facing the wall. This is family, not perfect, not peaceful, but bound by blood, mud, and sheer, desperate need. And in the middle of the longest winter, it's the only warmth you'll get. The sun is somewhere behind the clouds, not that you've seen it. You judge the time by the ache in your legs and the shadow on the wall. It's late afternoon, and the village is tense. It always gets like this in the dead of winter. Not loud, not chaotic, but tight, like a rope pulled too far, like something's going to snap. Because everyone is tired, everyone is hungry, everyone is cold, and every little thing starts to feel like a threat. The thin ice of social order. You don't live in a lawless world. Far from it. Your village is governed by custom, tradition, and watchful eyes. There's a reeve elected or appointed who answers to the local lord. There's a manor court for settling disputes, run by stewards who haven't swung a hammer in decades but know exactly how much firewood you owe the church. And there's the church itself, always watching. The priest might be your spiritual guide, but he's also a record keeper, a judge of sin, and an informant when necessary. Still, rules bend in winter, and people start to drift toward the edge. You hear it in whispers, see it in glances, feel it in the silence when someone doesn't show up to mass, and no one asks why. Theft, the oldest crime. It starts small, a loaf of bread gone missing from the bake oven, a hen vanishing in the night, a pile of firewood that was definitely bigger yesterday. Everyone knows who did it. No one says, because what are you going to do? Drag your neighbor into the snow and demand justice? He has 5 children. You have 3, and none of you are sure you'll make it to March. But sometimes it gets worse. Someone catches a thief. A real one, sneaking into a storehouse or rifling through someone's chest while they're out in the field. That's when the village justice begins. You don't call the sheriff. He's 10 miles away and busy chasing deer for the Lord's table. Instead, it's public shame, a beating, a fine, though there's never any money, stocks, if your village has them, or worse, exile, because even a petty theft in winter can mean death for the victim. 1 stolen cloak, 1 missing bag of oats. That's all it takes. And no one forgives that. Fights and feud, old grudges thaw in the cold. 2 brothers who haven't spoken since the harvest get drunk on frozen cider and come to blows in front of the tavern. A man accuses a neighbor of cursing his ox. A woman slaps another for insulting her bread. And someone else, always someone else, watches it all and remembers. The law allows some violence. There's even a tradition for it. The trial by combat. If the dispute is serious enough land, honor, insult, it might be settled with fists or sticks, or, if the church isn't watching, with knives. You've seen it once. 2 men stripped to their shirts, panting in the snow, bleeding into the dirt while the village watched in grim silence. No one cheered, no one stopped them, because the fight was the justice, and when it was done, one man limping, the other not moving, everyone went home and closed their shutters. Because winter was still here, and the cold didn't care who won. Women in conflict. You'd think women were gentler, kinder, more forgiving, but winter shows you another side. The gossip alone is enough to start wars. She's been seeing the blacksmith behind her husband's back, She didn't offer bread to the widow last Sunday. She let her child die and buried it without a priest. These whispers spread like fire in dry rushes, and once spoken, they can't be unspoken. Some women are shunned, others are accused of witchcraft, especially if they know too much about herbs, or if their milk doesn't spoil like everyone else's, or if they've survived more winters than makes sense. No one says it outright, but you see it in how they're treated. The way people stop knocking on their door, the way their children come home crying, the way the priest looks at them like they're already halfway to hell. And then there are the fights, not with fists, but with eyes and words and silence. No one forgets an insult in the winter. There's too much time to remember. Children and cruelty. Children pick up everything. They repeat the gossip. They mimic the cruelty. They learn. You've seen them huddle in corners, throwing stones at the pale, sickly boy who doesn't talk. You've heard them call a girl cursed because her mother died in childbirth. You've watched one child push another into the snow just to see if they'd cry. And no one stops them because the adults are tired. Because the village has no constable. Because cruelty becomes normal when survival is the only rule. And yet children still laugh, still chase each other in the snow, still build small, crooked snowmen near the well and pretend they're king. They learn the rules of cruelty, but they also cling to joy as long as they can. The shadows beyond the village. There are dangers inside the village, but there are worse things beyond it. Bandits, men who were once farmers, soldiers, or simply hungry, now living in the woods, waiting for someone to stray too far. They don't rob you for riches, they rob you for bread, boots, or the cloak off your back. Wolves, real ones, with yellow eyes and empty stomachs. You've seen the track, you've heard the howls at night, not stories, not dreams, but the real, sharp sound of nature, reminding you that you are not in control. Outlaws, exiled men, runaways, escaped prisoners. They have no home, no lord, no protection, and nothing to lose. So you stay close to the fire. You check the door twice. You watch the shadows, and you don't go out after dark. Ever. The deepest conflict. Resentment. But the worst tension? It's not in theft, or fighting, or wolves. It's in the quiet bitterness. You see it in the eyes of your neighbor. When your goat survives and his doesn't. You feel it when someone mentions that your family got 2 portions of grain while theirs only got 1. You hear it in the silence after a prayer when everyone is wondering why their child was taken and not yours. There's no violence, no crime, just the slow, burning rot of envy. And nothing feeds it like hunger. The last light slips from the sky like it's trying to escape the cold. No sunset, no golden hour, just a slow grey fade into black. And then it's night. You close the door, not because it keeps out the cold, it doesn't, but because it's the only thing between you and what might be waiting outside. The fire crackles weakly. The baby fusses in their sleep. Your brother pulls the blanket tighter over his shoulders. No one speaks. It's not bedtime. It's fear time. Because in this world, the night isn't empty. It's full. Full of noise, full of stories, full of things best left unmentioned. And in the depth of a medieval winter, you are never really sure what's real. The fire is life. The hearth is your sun now. It glows faintly. The logs hissing with sap, the flames licking half-heartedly at damp wood. You crouch near it, holding your hands out, watching the sparks drift up like fireflies that forgot what season it island. You never let the fire go out, ever. Not just because it's your only source of heat, though it island. Not just because relighting it means walking through the snow to beg an ember from a neighbor, though that's humiliating. But because if the fire dies, it means something got in. That's what they say. Not openly, not in daylight, but they say it. You feed the fire like it's a god. You whisper to it when you add kindling. You never turn your back to it. And when someone coughs or cries in the dark, you stare at the flames until your thoughts settle. The fire doesn't just warm the room, it pushes the shadows back. And tonight, the shadows are hungry. The sounds of the night. At first, it's quiet. Then you hear it. The scratching soft and rhythmic of something on the thatch above. Could be a rat. Could be something else. The wind slipping through cracks in the wall. Could be a breeze. Could be a voice. The creak of wood as the house settles. Could be nothing. Could be someone stepping wrong. The howl far off, but not far enough. Wolves, probably. You hold your breath. You listen. And you pray it's just winter being cruel. Because if it's not, if it's one of them, then it's already too late. What you fear most. There are many things to fear in the dark, and they're not always wolves. You fear the dead. Mostly. The ones who died unblessed, the ones who weren't buried properly, the ones who were buried too well and came back. You fear the witches though no one says the word out loud, the woman with too many herbs, the old man who lives alone and talks to crows, the midwife who knows what dreams mean and sometimes knows them before they happen. You fear the spirits of the forest, the green ones, the white ones, the ones who knock 3 times at the door and leave no footprints in the snow. But most of all, you fear the things that have no name, because if you name them, you invite them, and once they come, they don't leave. What you do to stay safe. You bank the fire with ash, not just for warmth, but because it traps the flame, keeps it asleep but alive. You sprinkle salt on the threshold. You hang dried rosemary near the door. You spit into the fire and whisper a name that's supposed to scare away fever spirits. Your grandmother mutters a chant in a language that might not even be Latin. Your father makes the sign of the cross 3 times, slow, careful, backward. The baby cries again. You rock them gently, whispering to no one in particular. Shh, it's just the wind. You don't believe it, but it helps to say the fear of sleep. You try to sleep. You lie on your side, facing the wall, wrapped in a blanket that smells like goats and wet stone. But sleep doesn't come easy, because sleep is a kind of surrender, and surrender, in the middle of winter, feels like death. You've seen people go to bed and never wake up. Old people who stopped eating, infants who stopped breathing, men drunk or freezing or simply too tired to care. They curled up like you do now. They whispered prayers, and then they were gone. Your eyes stay open longer than you'd like. You stare at the flicker of firelight on the ceiling. You count the cracks in the beam. You listen to your brother's breathing. You touch your chest to make sure your heart is still beating. Island. For now, when death comes, sometimes death comes gently. A sigh, a stillness, a whispered name in the dark. Other times, it comes with shaking. Fevers, screams. You've seen someone die of sickness, sweat pouring off their body even as the cold tried to drag them down. You've seen someone die of hunger, their stomach shrinking, while their eyes stayed wide open, as if they were still waiting for food. You've seen someone die alone in the woods, half frozen, half eaten, and not found until the thaw. Death is not rare. It is the weather. It comes and goes, and you dress for it, but you never get used to it. Not really. Every cough is a warning. Every long silence is a question. Every night is a roll of the dice. You fall asleep finally with your hand near the fire and your back to the door. Just in case something comes in, just in case something calls your name, you hope you don't hear it. You hope you don't answer. The fire is just a glow now, no flames, just soft red coals, like a memory warming the corner of the room. Everyone's asleep, or nearly. Even the goat has stopped shifting in the straw. You're lying on your side, wrapped in a blanket made of scratch and stubbornness. Your feet are still cold, but not as cold as they were. And for the first time today, your body isn't moving. You've survived another winter day in the Middle Ages, That's not a small thing, it's everything. Because survival here isn't about big moments. It's not about heroism or grand choices or glory. It's about getting through the day without breaking, without starving, without freezing, without giving up. And today, you did. You woke up in the dark. You dressed in threadbare layers. You ate thin soup and drank weak ale. You chopped frozen wood. You listened to stories. You kept the fire burning. That's what life was here. Not comfort, not peace. Just endurance. The weight of history. We often look back on the past with romantic eyes. Think of castles, kings, grand halls, riches. But that wasn't most people. Most people, 90% of them were like you. Peasants, laborers, mothers, children, old men with frostbitten fingers, women who gave birth in the dark and prayed the child would draw breath, boys who became men before they'd even lost their baby teeth. They weren't remembered in books. No one carved their names into stone. They didn't leave behind paintings or letters or poems, but they left us. Because we came from them. Their blood is our blood. Their struggle made the world. Their survival day after cold, miserable day built the future. And tonight, you walked in their shoes. You felt the cold in their bone. You tasted their supper. You breathed their smoke. You saw how hard it was and how much harder it still got. And still, they live. A moment of gratitude. Now, lying there on your straw-stuffed bedding, you start to realize something. You have a bed, a real one. You have a blanket that doesn't smell like smoke and animals. You have heat, not a fragile fire, but something steady. You have medicine, clean water, a locked door, a lamp that turns on with a button. You have so much compared to them. And tonight, you get to let it in, not with guilt, but with gratitude. You get to close your eyes without wondering if your roof will collapse in the snow. You get to sleep without wondering if your child will wake up coughing blood. You get to rest, warm and whole, with no frost in your lungs, no lice in your sheets, no wolves at your door. You get to rest, and that is a privilege, a quiet one, a simple one, but a miraculous one. Letting go, the world outside is still frozen. Still dangerous, still sharp and cruel and old, but not for you, not tonight. You've traveled through time, you've touched the past, you've lived a day you were never meant to see, and now it's time to come back. Let the fire in your imagination burn lower. Let the cottage fade into mist. Let the weight of old wool, the smell of smoke, the taste of sour broth all dissolve. You're here now. In the quiet, safe, modern, wrapped in warmth, not fear. The wind outside your window is just wind. The silence is just peace. And your breath, soft, steady, calm, is your only task. You've earned it. The final thought. So tonight, as you drift off, remember, you don't have to wake up in the Middle Ages. You don't have to carry wood through the snow. You don't have to bleed into your boots or bury your dead before sunrise. You don't have to eat turnip stew by candlelight and pray that the fire doesn't die. You don't have to be strong like they were, but you can honor them by resting, by breathing, by whispering a quiet thank you into the dark for them and for yourself. Because history wasn't just made by kings and crowns, it was made by people who survived the night. Sleep well.